Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome to my show. I'm Royce Morales, and I am so excited today because I just have the most incredible guest, and I'll explain who he is and why he's incredible in a minute or two. But we're going to talk about conscious children's books. But I just have to tell you that when I had my son, which is a long time ago, hate to admit it, I would read him these books. I would read him these books and I would be falling asleep because they were so boring. And yeah, they were cute and whatever, but it was probably the same books that I read as a child. There wasn't anything new and innovative in those books. And when I opened my shop, I had a gift shop, a spiritually based gift shop for 21 years. I decided that I was going to carry children's books that were conscious. Could hardly find any, in fact, maybe a few. So it's just thrilling that this man is offering something that's so important. I also, by the way, tried to write my own children's books, and it was a lot harder than it seems. Keeping it down to like 200 word limit or something ridiculous like that was impossible for me. I'm kind of wordy. So when I found out what Andrew was doing, I just had to talk to him because it's such a personal excitement for me. But before I introduce Andrew, I want to introduce somebody who's very special to me, Jacqueline Stratton. She is co-hosting with me today. I intuitively felt like she should be here, and I trust my intuition usually. And she is a child development and parent education expert. She taught elementary school for a long time. And full disclosure, she is one of my students, longtime students. So she's going to add her brilliant input and questions. And, she has children a lot younger than mine, so she can probably relate a little bit better to some of the stuff that Andrew's going to talk about. So welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So let me introduce Andrew Newman. He does more than write adorable, creative, bright, fun, whimsical children's books. He is an award-winning author and founder of Conscious Stories. And he has, I don't even know how many stories you've written, but they're a lot. And he sent me a couple of them. I just have to tell you, I reread this one. It's adorable. It's so meaningful and filled with so much information that you got out there in ways that children can understand. It just moved me to tears. It was beautiful. So I'm going to let him talk about how he was inspired to do all this. But his books are basically helpful guides that help children and parents grow consciously together. And I'm sure there's as much value for parents as there is for children, which I think is just amazing too. It's about nurturing their spirituality, allowing them to have emotions, allowing them to look a little bit deeper inside themselves before those beliefs are solidified and, all the stuff that children go through, especially in the last few years with so much trauma and anxiety and fear and all the stuff that's going on in the world. I think these books are such treasures. And he gives parents tools to make what he calls their bedtime ritual, which I just love. The last 20 minutes of the day, he keeps referring to it. And he brings to life detailed psychological and spiritual understanding in ways that children can really understand. And it's just amazing. In fact, one of his therapy clients said to him, which was exactly my thoughts, he said, I wish I had had this when I was younger. It would have saved me many years of painful misunderstanding. So true.
Yeah.
So I want to just welcome you, Andrew, and he's going to start out. He suggested that he read us a book, and hopefully we're not all going to fall asleep because I don't think so. They're just wonderful. So thank you for being here, and take it away. Read us a book.
Royce, so good to be here with you. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I love that we get to start with a story. It's clearly my heart's core language is the language of story. So let's go in and do the hug. Who got stuck? It is actually the 6th book out of what is now 23 books in the Conscious Bedtime Stories collection. And I'm a little bit like a musician who made an album and then had to wait to see which songs got played. And this is a song that particularly gets a lot of airtime. And this is for children of all ages. You know, you're the young one inside to kick back and enjoy. And I'm going to share my screen, and we should just confirm for me you can see that beautiful green title.
Yes. Oh, yes. You're going to read that one. I love that.
Yes, we must do the hug who got stuck. This is the right story for this morning. And so it's dedicated to all who hug. Now, all of the stories start with this little snuggle breathing meditation. It's an opportunity for attunement with yourself and for us with each other. So just notice what it's like, and that's an invitation to you in studio and to everyone who's watching. See what happens in your body really as we do these 4 breaths. So breathing in, I breathe for me. Nice breath in. I breathe for me. I breathe for you. I breathe for us. And I breathe for all that surrounds us.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, that itself is beautiful.
It's a softening. It happens just straight away. We can chat lots more about what this is doing, but particularly important for the mothers of young children, that they breathe for themselves, to recenter. It's so easy to get lost into the role of being mum. So, story time. Once upon a time, on a very ordinary day, deep in the center of a very ordinary heart, an extraordinary thing happened.
I love the illustrations.
Alexis Aronson, she does great. Deep in the center of this heart was a hug factory. The hug factory made the most warm, cozy, cuddly hugs. And that cute little guy. Okay, I'll give you a quick tour of the hug factory. This is on the right is the door of the heart. Hugs come zooming in the door of the heart. They come up into this room, top right, where they glow so full of love. And that love gets caught on the solar panels. And the solar panels fill up a big green battery with the love energy. And that in turn powers this light deep in the center of the heart, where there are baby hugs growing in a forest of trees. That is hydroponically drip fed by a stardust, a rainbow light, and that's a basket of warm fuzzy feelings up there. And then as the hugs are ready, they get picked and they get taken through to the encoding room. We'll see in a minute, and then they come out zooming over like a little barcode scanner, and the reminder sign, which we'll see in the back, is zooming out into the world. It's amazing how much is happening in our hearts.
Wow.
Each hug was freshly made and specially encoded with just the right amount of love and care to delight the heart it was made for. Being a hug wasn't always easy. Sometimes a lonely thought or bad feeling would trap a hug in a sticky web. Uh-oh. You see these little words here. Nobody loves me.
Words are great.
Anxious. Who cares? I'm all alone. There's something wrong with me. So to help hugs deliver their love and care, there was a big sign on the factory wall. Reminders to being a great hug. 1, breathe in love to glow brightly. 2, focus entirely on the heart the love is for. And 3, don't pay too much attention to the web of sticky thoughts. On most days, you could see streams of hugs entering and leaving the door of the heart, zooming away like bees from a hive. But not on this day. On this day, there was a problem. One special hug on its way out of the heart got stuck. Very, very stuck. This hug had forgotten the third rule. It fought against a web of sticky thoughts to get free, but every wriggle and squirm trapped the hug even more. Soon the hug ran out of breath and lost its glow. Inside, the heart became horribly congested, with crowds of hugs waiting to get out. Unused hugs were put into boxes until every inch of space was filled up. Outside the heart, there was also a problem. A traffic jam of visiting hugs couldn't get in to deliver their special love and care. Soon the factory stopped making new hugs. There was only one stuck hug in the center of one ordinary heart, but all around the world, hugs lost a little of their glow.
Wow.
Oh, no. The hug sighed helplessly. Can we all sigh together? Oh. It stopped wriggling, stopped squirming, and stopped fighting. In that moment, something magical happened. As it stopped wriggling, it breathed in love and glowed brighter. As it stopped squirming, it remembered the heart it was made for. As it stopped fighting, it slipped right past the web of sticky thoughts. Free! Yay! The hug glowed brighter and brighter, zooming away toward the one special heart it was made for. The hug factory clinked and whirled back to life. A flood of hugs passed in and out of the heart, each delivering their special love and care. It was just one hug who got unstuck in the center of one ordinary heart, and all around the world, an extraordinary softening happened. The end. Hey.
Precious. Share that. There you go. Because that too.
Yeah, each book's got its own version of a little activity page. This is your daily hug meter. Virginia Satir is really the grandmother of family therapy. She said we need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 for maintenance, and 12 for growth. So we thought we should make a hug meter where you can check how many hugs did you receive, how many did you give. Of course, that's a little philosophical conversation right there. But what special ingredients do you put into your hugs? What sticky thoughts are bothering you? Do you remember how to get free? And then, do that. And then who are you growing hugs for as you sleep tonight? So when I'm doing, a Zoom story time with kids in a school, or whether I'm at a school in person, what we focus on here is like, who are you growing hugs for? Like, who are you going to see later in your day? And then the special ingredients that we get are amazing. We have peanut butter jelly bean glitter sparkle hugs. It's amazing what sort of hugs we can make. And a lot of the hugs that kids have made in these actually went into the sequel, which is called The Hug Factory Bursts with Love.
Wow, that is so wonderful. Thank you so much. We lost Jackie. There she is.
I think it's just a delay.
So besides wanting to suck my thumb and grab my blanket, tell us how you got inspired to do this. It's a wonderful story. I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my stories dropped in creative writing time. Some of them, I mean, really the first story, which is a book called A Little Light, I was just walking around a field in Scotland with my journal, writing poetry, which I like to do, and I wrote a little poem, and I thought straight away, oh, I need to illustrate this, and that's where it started. It was a creative hobby, and it was also, you spoke earlier of intuition. It was me following intuition and inner movement of like, oh, I like this, let me just follow it. And it was 3 or 4 books in over 3 or 4 years before I realized that there was actually something happening that was that tied in my studies and my understanding, my work around personal development and healing. And at that stage, I was starting to see, hold on, I've now done 4 years of training. All of the adults seem to be dealing with the same issues. I started off thinking they were deeply personal and only me, and then realized it's not like that at all. And how hard it is for us as adults to kind of do the repair of our injured childhoods, and how much sense it makes in me and my heart that we work to enable kids better right from the start than to have to come back around and do this repair later.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at the big human themes. Right? Oh, this is my system organically looks at it. I don't have to think about it too much. I just kind of go, oh yeah, we're all struggling with the head-heart dilemma, aren't we? How do we get those in right relationship with each other? So that's where the Hug Who Got Stuck is born from. And then a little bit later in the season is a story. I don't know if that inverts itself. It's the little brain people, and so we've created a similar world as the Hug Factory, but or what's happening in the brain, because what we've learned about the brain, even since I was studying, has been extraordinary. And our kids are actually being educated about the brain as young as kindergarten in certain environments.
Yeah. So, Jackie, what do you think about that book in terms of your work with children?
Wow. Thank you I'm so glad we got to hear a story. I'm going to have to get more of your books. Thank you. That was really eye-opening to see, like Roy said, so many of the books that are out, prior to the last maybe 10, 20 years were very stale, not really discussing things like the brain, not discussing the feelings, not discussing the greater experience of being a human as a young person. And your book not only took us into something so important as affection, but also I was really impressed by the technological part of it, because kids today are so interested in, of course, and exposed to technology. You turned the heart into a technological device, which kids are really going to relate to. The way you fed the hug into the heart and all the different channels of it. I right away thought, oh, kids today are going to really connect to that. Of course, parents are going to be really interested in these books, but I think these are also wonderful classroom books for preschool, for young daycares, and even up into the upper grades of elementary. A fifth grader would still love to hear that book. Maybe even high school would still like to hear that book.
Yeah.
There's a little, it depends who delivers it.
Well, teachers know how to do that.
And that's right. The conversation evolves. And this is one of the nuances of my stories, because they're a little bit, they're layered, and understanding at different ages is going to come in differently. Whereas a lot of the books, again, that I see in the elementary school space, and that it's important that these exist, but some of them are really sort of like how does Jack feel, and we can see the expression, and we're at that stage just learning the facial expression to emotion recognition piece is really important. but that book then doesn't hold over time and over different ages. Whereas you are both having your own experience of this story at your age, and this is what I like to be able to do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I also wanted to note that these kind of books are really going to go along well with what schools are doing in the United States now, which is really working on mindfulness and feelings and developing a sense of inner awareness and what's going on in your physiological and physical and emotional, spiritual levels when you're going through different experiences in the school or at home, and then you're going to school, because so many children come to school with high ACEs scores, which are adverse childhood experiences. And to have a teacher pull out a book like yours, I forgot the title of it. What's it called again?
The Hug Who Got Stuck.
The Hug Who Got Stuck. It helps the child process their own need for hugs right away. You explain. And not only that, you started the book with breathing techniques. So again, those techniques can help not only parents, but also caregivers, babysitters, grandparents, teachers, educators, psychologists, therapists, all the people who are going to be interacting with children on multiple levels. It's going to help our whole world and our schools in particular, from my perspective, to help kids process their feelings throughout the day. Yeah. So your book is going much deeper than you need a hug every day.
Yeah.
It's helping kids to realize, why do I need a hug?
Yeah, I mean, it warms my heart that you get that straight away. I mean, that this is my hope. You just described all of the people we've been chatting to, whether it's from the early farmers markets days to to now being online. The one of the things about putting the breathing practice into the front of the book, and we hear from the mums, is it's no longer mums saying we need to breathe. It's like here, it's in the book. We've got to do it, which is the reminder for everybody. And like in the very early days, I could see it was important. I put it in the book, and then sometimes I would skip it and I wouldn't do it myself when reading, and I got called out by someone on it. She said, every story, every time. And I went, thank you. And ever since, I mean, that's been me, because it can feel a little awkward sometimes if you haven't done a breathing practice before, you haven't or even the act of slowing down. If we're not patterned for it and used to transitioning, it can feel a little challenging, but that's a good challenge for us to be engaging with. And we soon get into it. I had this extraordinary experience with a 6-year-old. There's a 6-year-old who'd been around when I was first developing the books. He was 3 or 4 years, one of the first sort of like case clients, practice kids I would do story time with. And 3 or 4 years later, there I was, and I was having a sad day when I was babysitting, and we were in the pillow fort reading Harry Potter at that stage, and I got a bit sad, and he said, let's do that thing you like to do at the start of your stories.
Oh,
it's like that. That's like, I didn't know quite how to do that. It was like, oh my word! It was the first moment of what I'd put out at the world coming back to me in this particular way, and seeing the ownership being passed, from a concept into the hands and mind of a little one. If that's what's going to happen as a generation going forward, from the kids who are enjoying these stories.
I'd like to make one more point, if it's okay, Royce. As you're speaking and as I was experiencing this story, I had a huge realization that you said mums need to have a breath. And something that's going on in our world that I've noticed after teaching in the classroom and being with all levels of children for over 30 years is that kids are different now. Kids are coming to school and being exposed. The world's a harder place. We have a lot of stress going on the planet and in young people's lives. Well, guess who else is having a hard time? The adults, the parents, the educators. And your reminder in the beginning to take a deep breath, or whatever your book is themed toward and is encouraging children to do, the adults need that just as much. We're coming to schools with all of our traumas and all of our ACEs scores and all of our historical backgrounds that have created a lot of baggage or psychological effects on us. And to have someone say, and Mom, you need to take a deep breath too. Thank you. I mean, parents forget, it's stressful being a parent. So to have actually a book tell you, you need to take a deep breath is really insightful of you.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to also add, I talk a lot about the 100th monkey theory. And I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you know about that or not, but basically it's an actual scientific study that happened. There were all these monkeys that lived on a very deserted island. And one of them decided one day after he found his meal, his fruit, he took it to the water to wash it. Simultaneously on a neighboring island, all the monkeys started washing their fruit. And your book expresses this theory that if one hug is withheld, all hugs are feeling that. And when one hug is released, everything shifts. And so I love that. I thought that was a brilliant way to get that theory across. So now you have an actual scientific name. Too.
Yeah, we want that sense of affect. You. What happens with you is really important, actually, yes. and you affect the whole world. And I mean, if we said, and we certainly affect our world, and I mean the one that we're perceiving through, right? That one little stuck hug in here, and we look out through these eyes, and everything's gone a little bit dull and gloomy because we're festering on something. And when we can undo that, everything seems to brighten up for us.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So we need to take a little bit of a break. So when we get back, we'll talk some more about your amazing books. And you are listening to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Home Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Andrew Newman, the founder of Conscious Stories for Children, which I just want you to read your books. I want you to read all of them to me.
Oh, yeah. Next story.
So you talk a lot about the powerful connection between a child and a parent, or even a caregiver or grandparent. Sure. So how do your books kind of nurture that or foster that in some way? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, that connection. I mean, that's the medicine for all of the places where we have disconnection. Every form of, and we use trauma, but with a little t, micro traumas, daily things that we go through. Remember, your 4-year-olds only lived for like 1,200 days, and they're trying to make sense of the world. Their systems go like, who am I? How does this thing work? and they go out and they have experiences at school and on the playground and on the school bus. And some of those experiences leave them like a little confused because they don't really match the inner expectation of how wonderful everything's going to be. And then there's some challenge, and then that challenge, every painful event that happens is flavored with disconnection.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get hurt when we're in connection. It's that little mismatching experience that happens that creates our hurt. And so intentionally creating connection, it not only keeps us in the happy zone, it also does the repair of when we were previously feeling disconnected. We get to come back in. And so that one of the paired breathing is the fastest way to create a connection from an energetic perspective, which is why we have this here. If you think about it from an in utero aspect, you know that's paired breathing. That's how it was. You know, that's the ultimate level of connection.
Yeah.
And then the act of doing stories. I mean, you've just experienced it. We kind of went into this little bubble together. Now, often in the parenting or the and I would say a parenting role, but you know, understanding aunts, uncles, teachers, it's a parenting role. It's an educational role in certain aspects. We have rank over our kids, right? We're asking them to do things. And so there's a differential. It's like we you know, no, you can't do that. We decide that, right? They don't get to decide that for themselves always. And so what story time does is it brings us down to the same level. And instead of being in this front to front dynamic, where we can be quite oppositional in some way, we actually come side by side. We turn, and I've got my book here. We enter the world of story, but we enter it together. Yeah. And so we go on this journey together, and it softens and opens. I don't know if you've ever been, like, the conversations you have on a long car drive are great. Like, there's something, you're side by side again. You're heading in the same direction, and there's something about story that does that. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why I stick to books. Physical books as opposed to books on screen, because I want to have that experience of coming into it together, and then we get to have this conversation at the end. I have a new friend at the local coffee shop where I spend a lot of time writing, and she got the hug who got stuck story for her 4-year-old. Came back a week later, she says, "Oh my word!" She's like we've now got language for something that's been happening. We're like, have you got a sticky thought? Is it stuck in the web, right? So now they've got this little vernacular that is common to them and shared, and it's great because you know, within a couple of days the 4-year-old is turning around to mum going, "Mum, have you got something stuck there?" Like, good, let's have that connection. That's wonderful.
That's great. Oh my gosh. It's reminding me of a time I was I taught children's classes for a while, and I had a group of, I think they were like 10 or 12 or something like that. And I was teaching them. I found when I teach adults, it takes me an hour to get a concept out. When I teach children, it takes about 2 minutes and they get it. Yes. And I was teaching this one class, and afterwards, one of my 10-year-old students went up to her mom, and her mom was angry about something. And she goes, "Mom, are you in a button?" It was so cute. And then she
Yeah.
explained the whole concept to her about how, everything is, whenever a button is pushed, it's showing you a mirror of something inside. And she went on this whole explanation, and her mom gave me quite a dirty look. She's like, oh God, I don't want this kid knowing this stuff.
That's funny. The other aspect of stories is the way that we, as particularly at a young age, we identify in with the characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the boy who searched for silence, like, there we go, we plug in, and we've got his world, we've got the world of the heart, then also we've got the hairdresser for unicorns. Right now we're plugged in with her world, and okay, here's the sensitive butterfly. Now once you've read this story, when your little one's having a sensitive moment, we're like, oh, this reminds me of the sensitive butterfly. Oh yes, yeah. What and then how did she get through her difficult moment in the story? Can we borrow from that and use that? And it's these worlds come to life. Look, all of the big animation houses know this. This isn't, they just don't talk about it, right? They
Right.
know this. They create these worlds. They put it on your lunchbox and your water bottle, and there is, whether we ask for it or not, there's a thread from the character through to the value of the story.
Yeah.
And thankfully we've seen fabulous stories with good values coming out of the big production houses, which is great. And that is something that I wanted. It's like we've got the little stickers at the back of the book that are kind of I don't know, a modern day badge. Like the hairdresser for unicorns. You get to the end, and the little ones who get that sticker it says I sparkle, or I fall into silence. Now it's like a personal ownership piece that just becomes part of the identity piece. Now, and again, if we've got a sticker stuck on the water bottle, and we've got something next to the bed, and maybe you get some coloring sheets, and you're working with the characters, you're actually coming into the core lessons and the values of the story. It's through any contact point.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder. It's like an affirmation that they're looking at all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also, I comment on this because it's important for us to remember that what's around us in our physical environment, and this is one of the things we can influence as adults. We can choose what's supporting our kids, like what's in their atmosphere, what's on the wall next to the bed, what's on the water bottle. These are things that we actually get to steer towards our values, whatever they are.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to just interject something. Thank you for doing that. I think it's really important to shift our whole mindset away from these, as I was saying before, these old kind of characters that really weren't full of life in many ways. They were, not that books weren't good in the past. There were many, many wonderful stories written, but your books are taking the idea of story, as you beautifully illustrated. We go into the story together, and it's taking it to the next level of feeling on such a deep level, and helping children to identify with so many feelings. I have a question for you. Have you brought in the diversity and equity piece into your books as well? Because I'm not familiar with your books, so I was wondering, have you incorporated international representations and all of the representations of different languages, different cultures, different religions into some of your books?
I'm going to say lightly and indirectly. Firstly, many of our characters aren't human. So it's intentionally, in a way, because it allows us to have like connection with a character without that identification piece that says, oh, that's not me. And then we certainly track male and female characters through different stories. The hug, you may have noticed, doesn't have a gender because I don't have a gender. We have a little bit of diversity in the few characters that we have. Like there's the story that's on the wall I'm looking at in front of me in my studio, which is coming out, is called The Missing Angels. And that's actually got 3 kids in it. It's one of the first ones where we've created kids as the central characters. It's a little like my mandate is a little different to that mandate. There's I'm here to address the spiritual heart of the child. I'm here to speak on the psychological spiritual intersection. There are folks, again, also as a white male out of South Africa, right. There's certain stories that it's just not mine to tell. And so I'm glad to see that there are many great authors out there who are able to tell more personal stories that speak to their communities directly.
I like your idea of using sort of the archetypes to bring through the story, which don't need to be in human form, but they represent many ways of seeing the experience of being a human, or the experience of being a being, and interacting with non-physical situations. Like feelings are not physical. A hug is not a physical thing. It can't have a gender. So how would you represent it? You represent it as this donut enveloping shape with wings to fly. So I really appreciate I'm really glad I asked that question, because I think you answered it perfectly, letting us know that it's a beyond the physical way of looking as a human. It's much more archetypal, which is the symbolic experience, the feeling of being a human.
Yeah. So one of our central themes is belonging. It's like I mean, you get to know me through each of these stories. So there's nothing that I've written here that I don't wrestle with. So, the head-heart dilemma, the searching for silence, the sense of belonging, and that the story just behind me, which is the Rolling Thunder finds his herd. A horse gets moved from his old herd to a new herd. Now, I mean, that could be a kid coming into a new classroom.
Yeah,
that's across the board. It doesn't matter what your identity is. It doesn't matter what your race is. It's a thematic thing around belonging, and the way that the horse comes into his really gets accepted into the community is only when he stops trying to be something for anybody else and just centers in enjoying himself and being who he is. And when we do that, we radiate. We're vibrant. We're much more magnetic, and people get interested in us. So that's that's a lesson, and I would hope that everyone can use it at all ages.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it kind of leads me into my next question, which you've probably answered to some degree. But how do you come up with these topics? Is it just looking inside and going, "Oh, this was horrible when I was a child. Let me write a book about it"? Is it like that, or does it go deeper than that? Where do they come from?
In some way, it's like that, but it's not that that's happening intentionally. It's like that happened because of the layers of personal development and training work that I was doing. That I just grew into awareness of that.
Yeah.
Then the stories often drop in, so it's not like I can call forward a story. I can set my intention to write a story, and I can open to do some listening, and I feel listening to the world really. I didn't know that was what was happening in the early days. The book called The Boy Who Searched for Silence. I did a 4-day silent meditation. I wasn't thinking anything about writing a book. In fact, I wasn't allowed to have a journal at this retreat, and as we finished 4 days of silent retreat, the story just dropped right in. It took about 5 minutes to write. And just as I was packing up my bags, I got sort of a familiar, like, "Hey, go get your pen." And and I'd be like, "Okay, I go get my pen." And like, there it is. I can feel what happens in me is I can feel the first words of something I want to write. And they kind of nudge me to go and write. And the hug who got stuck, I was trying to have an afternoon nap, and I was like, "No, I've got to get up and write this thing." I'm like, "I'm irritated. I don't want to write a story right now. I want to have a nap." So it's a little bit and I don't know how deeply you cross lanes into the spiritual here, but it feels to me like a spiritual experience a lot of the time when I'm writing it. Even now I'm writing an adult book about creativity, and when I go back to edit it, I go, did I write that? That's great.
I understand. Yes. Yeah. And what about older children? Do you ever consider writing for them?
I get asked every now and again. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's not yet my medium, and we'll see. I think that in my heart I've got a more direct affinity to the younger ages. Yeah. But perhaps at some stage I'll start working more intently on my own teenage restoration, and it'll be I need something in the young adults.
Yeah. Unless it's too late for them, I don't know.
Never. No, we start where we are, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I was going to say that. Sorry, Royce.
No, go ahead.
Your books can be easily read to any age. And one thing that's really important for parents and caregivers and teachers to do is to continue reading to children all the way into their teenage years.
Yes.
And kids actually in their older years like picture books still. They still want to see picture books. They still want to have the simple language. They still want to hear the messages and connect through story, as you were describing to us earlier. So there's no reason why your books couldn't be promoted to upper elementary grades and even junior high school. Like I said, I really do think that parents could still, especially if a parent is connecting to your books when their children are younger, they're going to remember those stories and say, oh, do you remember that book by Andrew that has talks about a hug? Why don't we practice that breathing technique that we learned in the book? And, keep going back to the idea of the story or read the story itself.
Yeah, there's something that's interesting that happens. I think it happens with many books, but I've seen it very directly with mine. I went to a party at the house of one of my fans. Let's put it that way. And I know the mom and the kids. He's 6 now, so he's got a lot of my books. And I went and sat down in his room next to his bookshelf, and I popped open the story. And as I opened it, it was like this. All of the connection moments that he's had with his mother were right there in the energetic of the book that I picked up.
Wow.
And it was so profoundly different for me because I get books from the factory and then they sit here and then I read them. They're not yet breathed and lived into in the way that this one does. And it was so clearly his book and their world and their connection. And it was all anchored together. It's like that would happen with a plushie, right? If your toy or your blankie, it becomes yours. It gets its ownership piece. Yes. And I think it's really important that we can have that, and that we can have those spaces. And that's also one of the nice things. That might not be true for every book in the story for you, but you will find your book in the collection, and go, okay, this is mine. And it's where I build relationship. This is the world I go and hang out in. Super nourishing. And I was thinking a moment about the school space. I mean, I love going out to schools. And I had the great privilege of being author in residence. I got a 2-week residency out at a school in Wisconsin. And there we get to do story creation work and essentially it's literacy work and social emotional work that's blending together, because we have a wonderful, I can teach how to write story in a way that's accessible for 4-year-olds, 4th graders, or into the upper elementaries. And that's where we cross into some of the older age groups, because as the writing skills come in, I become interesting to those kids on a different level. Hey, how does the writing work? What's it like to publish? How do you make a book? And those sort of things are other points that I thoroughly enjoy educating around and being engaged with kids. if it's a reason for me to be in the room, I'm doing all of my work, and on the surface, I'm talking about how you make a book, but really, I'm then holding that embodiment of the of all of the core values that are in the collection.
Wow.
Yeah, don't limit yourself to elementary level. I think you could encourage your books for the upper grades as well, and encourage students not only to learn the value of how to write stories and how to bring spirituality and emotions into stories, but also how to still enjoy stories and learn from them even as you age.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, we are probably running out of time. We have about 5 more minutes, and there's one question that's just burning to ask. I always have this list of questions, and it's like I rarely get to any of them. But this one I feel is really important because, you know, I've had personal experience of working with children, as you do. Do you really think kids at a really young age are able to self-reflect from the words that you're giving them? What is your feeling about that?
It's a great question, because developmentally, some of even the language you're using, inner world and outer world, that differentiation isn't available to the younger kids. It actually doesn't exist for them. It's part of the maturation process, and they're going to come into it close to 6 or 7 that it happens in the way that we're used to having it, right? We don't, as adults, but introducing it early is a wonderful idea, because it sets up some of the language. There's a very fine balance. We know as educators, we don't want to position something out of reach in front of the child, because that actually creates a tension that we don't need to add to them. And at the same time, we can blend in experiences like this in each of these stories are things they are going to face in their life. And so what we're doing is we're doing the preventative medicine that says, here's how the character gets through it when they face it. Here's how they get through it when they face it. Here's how they get through it. So now the pattern of, you can get through it is being layered in so they can see what the challenging moments are. I mean, Jacqueline, I'm fascinated where you land on that question as well.
Yeah, I think that just teaching kids at a really young age how to, you said it really well, Royce, that the children that you taught got it instantly. And that's my experience as well. As soon as you start sharing ideas with kids, they're sponges. They're not closed. They don't have all the baggage and all the thoughts of life with so many years behind it. They're really open to new ideas. And spiritually speaking, or emotionally speaking, I honestly think they're wanting help with that. They're starving for information about it. They need to have tools to, like you did so well in the books, Andrew, they need to have tools to express what is going on here.
Right.
I don't feel good. Something's not right. Oh, I need a hug. A hug could make me feel better.
Yeah.
Or the hairdresser, or all the different themes you're having. Like, how do I do my hair? Oh my God, my hair is bothering me. Or my clothes, or whatever. They want ways to talk about, understand, and then in turn reflect and connect to other people about. They're very natural at it, and very quick to pick it up and keep taking it forward. They don't forget, they remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I think that's a beautiful way to put it, because they just don't have the words. They get it. It's innate, but they don't have the words to say, "This is what I'm feeling," or "This is what I'm afraid of," or so. Yeah, it really helps on that level. Yeah.
So, one last point about that is, when children don't have the tools to use it, and your books help people with this, and Royce, your teachings help with this. When people don't have the tools, they suffer. So how can you help people to move out of the suffering and the pain and the trauma? By reading your books, Andrew, by taking your classes, Royce. These kind of things are helping all of humanity move forward.
Yes. So with our last minute or so, how do people find you? How do people find your books? Give us all your contact information.
Yeah, consciousstories.com is the website where everything happens. We're on Instagram and Facebook under Conscious Bedtime Stories. If you want to follow along, we'd love to have you there.
Yes.
Always like to hear from parents how it's going with their kids, hear the challenges. We're often like, hey, which story would help with this, which will help with that. You can see the emotion themes that we have right up on the website to support.
Yes. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Andrew Newman, you're amazing. And Jackie, thank you so much for your great questions and insight. I start new classes all the time. Reach out to me, Perfect Life Awakening. And I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.